Prison food exposed. What inmates really eat. Subscribe for more real crime stories. Like, share, and join the discussion below. The scream echoed through the dining hall of Stonebridge State Prison. A tray clattered to the ground, splattering something brown and slimy across the concrete floor. Inmate Marcus Red Jackson stared down at his meal, his face pale and his hands trembling. Inside his mashed potatoes wriggled a live maggot. The men sitting around him froze. Then chaos broke out, shouts, curses, trays flying through the air. Guards rushed in, batons raised. One inmate yelled, "They're feeding us garbage." "We ain't animals." The guards barked orders, forcing everyone against the walls. But the damage was done. The secret was out. Something was very wrong with the prison food at Stonebridge. That day would be remembered as the maggot lunch riot. But how did it all start? How did food, the one thing meant to keep people alive, become a weapon of control inside those gray walls? 2 months earlier, Marcus had arrived at Stonebridge to serve a 5-year sentence for robbery. He wasn't new to prison life, but Stonebridge felt different from the start. The air smelled faintly of bleach and something rotten. On his first night, his cellmate, Darnell, warned him, "Whatever you do, don't eat the chili on Wednesdays." Marcus had laughed, thinking it was a joke. But when Wednesday came, he learned it wasn't. The chili was cold, greasy, and tasted like metal. He barely swallowed 2 bites before gagging. Across the table, other inmates just stared at their trays, poking at the food like it might bite back. The next morning, breakfast wasn't much better. 2 slices of bread that looked gray around the edges and a scoop of watery oatmeal that smelled faintly sour. "This can't be legal," Marcus whispered, but Darnell only shrugged. "Legal? Man, in here, you're lucky if the food don't make you sick." Within a week, Marcus started noticing things others had stopped paying attention to. The kitchen staff, mostly inmates, wore torn gloves and stained aprons. Boxes marked, "Not for human consumption," were stacked by the freezer. Sometimes, he'd see cockroaches scatter across the floor when the lights flicked on. The worst part was the meat, if you could call it that. It was gray, chewy, and tasted like cardboard soaked in oil. Rumors spread that it was mixed with animal scraps from a nearby processing plant. Marcus started keeping notes. Dates, meals, complaints. He told Darnell he planned to file a report, but Darnell shook his head. "You don't mess with the kitchen, Red. People who ask too many questions end up in the infirmary." Still, Marcus couldn't let it go. One night, he overheard 2 guards talking. "They keep cutting the food budget," one said. "Warden says to make it stretch. Don't care how." The other laughed. "Well, at least the dogs get fed better than these guys." That was the moment Marcus realized it wasn't just neglect. It was control. Keep them hungry, keep them weak. That's how the system worked. But Marcus wasn't weak. Not anymore. And then, one afternoon, he discovered something in his food that changed everything. Something that would spark the riot and expose the truth about what the inmates at Stonebridge were really eating. Marcus stared down at his lunch tray, his stomach twisting. At first glance, it looked like a regular meal. Mashed potatoes, gravy, and a slice of bread that was supposed to be white but looked grayish-brown. But then he saw it. Something small and shiny buried in the potatoes. He pushed his fork into it, lifting out a metal screw the size of his pinky nail. The dining hall buzzed with noise, but in that instant, everything around him went silent. "What the hell is this?" he whispered, holding it up. Darnell leaned closer, eyes wide. "Bro, put that down before somebody sees." Marcus didn't listen. He stood up, tray in hand, and shouted, "Yo, they're putting metal in our food now." His voice cut through the chatter like a blade. Heads turned. Guards at the far end started moving. Within seconds, the room was alive with angry voices. "We're eating trash. This ain't food. You're trying to kill us." The guards stormed in, shouting orders. "Sit down. Sit down now." One shoved Marcus hard in the chest. His tray hit the floor, splattering gravy everywhere. The metal screw rolled across the concrete and stopped at a guard's boot. For a split second, even the guard froze. He kicked it aside and barked, "Kitchen accident." back to eating.
But no one picked up a fork again that day.
Later that night, Marcus was thrown into solitary confinement for inciting disorder. The cell was small, damp, and smelled like mold. He sat on the cold floor, staring at the wall, the image of that screw burned in his mind. They wanted to shut him up, but now he was sure something was being hidden. When he was released 3 days later, Darnell met him in the yard. "You crazy, Red," Darnell said. "You keep poking at this, you'll end up in the hole for good." Marcus grinned. "Maybe. But if I go down, I'm taking that kitchen with me." That week, Marcus got assigned to kitchen duty. He didn't know if it was a punishment or fate, but either way, it was his chance to find proof. The first thing he noticed when he walked in was the stench, like spoiled meat and old bleach. Flies buzzed over uncovered trays. A guard named Officer Riley supervised the shift, leaning against the wall with a smirk. "Welcome to five-star dining," he joked. Marcus worked quietly, scrubbing pots, watching everything. In the storage room, he saw boxes labeled animal protein mix stacked high, covered in dust. The label underneath read, "Feed grade, not for human consumption."
His heart sank.
He opened one box and saw what looked like ground meat mixed with bone fragments and fat. The smell was unbearable. When he tried to tell another inmate, a kitchen worker named Leo shook his head nervously. "Keep it quiet, man. They know what's in here. You talk, they'll make you disappear." But Marcus couldn't stop. That night, he hid a small piece of the packaging in his shoe. He planned to show it to the prison counselor, who sometimes visited the cell blocks. It wasn't much, but it was proof. The next morning, before breakfast, Marcus noticed the entire kitchen crew looked uneasy. The warden himself was walking through, inspecting everything. "Big inspection tomorrow," Officer Riley announced. "Make sure the food looks good." That night, Marcus snuck into the kitchen again, trying to take more pictures using a smuggled phone. But as he turned toward the freezer door, he froze. There, lying on the floor next to a box of spoiled meat, was Leo, motionless, pale, and covered with a sheet. Marcus's blood ran cold. He stepped back, his breath trembling. Leo had known too much. And now someone had made sure he'd never talk again. Marcus couldn't breathe. The cold air from the freezer stung his face as he stared at Leo's body. There was no blood, no sign of a fight, just a stillness that didn't make sense. His mind raced. Leo was fine the night before. He'd even joked about getting out soon.
Now he was gone.
Marcus knew right then, this wasn't an accident. Someone had silenced him. He slipped out of the kitchen quietly, his heart pounding. The next morning, word spread fast. Leo had a heart attack, the guard said. But nobody believed that. The inmates whispered in corners, eyes darting toward the kitchen door like it was cursed. Marcus sat in the cafeteria, staring at his untouched tray. The same gray meat, the same moldy bread. Every bite tasted like fear now. Darnell leaned across the table whispering, "You gotta stop this, man. They're watching you." Riley's been asking questions. Marcus looked up. "Then let him watch. I'm not backing down." He had the photos. He'd managed to hide his phone under a loose tile in his cell floor. Pictures of the boxes, the rotting meat, even one blurry shot of the "not for human consumption" label. It was proof enough to cause trouble if he could get it out. A week later, an outside inspector came for the surprise visit the warden had mentioned. The prison rushed to clean up. Fresh paint on the walls, new uniforms for kitchen staff, and special meals for the day. Everything looked perfect. But Marcus had a plan. During lunch, when the inspector came through the dining hall, Marcus stood up. The guards tensed instantly. "Sir," he shouted, holding his tray high. "You want to see the truth? Come to the kitchen after they're done serving." The room went silent. The warden's eyes went cold. "Sit down, Jackson," he said through clenched teeth. But Marcus didn't move. "People are dying here," he said. "You think this food's fit for anyone? Go see what they're feeding us." The inspector looked uneasy. The warden tried to pull him away, but Marcus kept shouting. The room erupted again. Shouts from inmates, guards grabbing batons, trays crashing to the floor. The chaos drowned everything out. In the middle of it, Officer Riley slammed Marcus against the wall. "You think you're a hero?" he hissed. "You just signed your own death sentence." That night, they dragged Marcus to solitary again. His knuckles were bruised, his face swollen, but he smiled through the pain. He'd seen the inspector's face, shocked, disturbed. Maybe, just maybe, he'd listened. 2 days later, the power went out across the prison. The halls went black except for the flickering red of the emergency lights. Shouts echoed through the blocks. Marcus sat in the darkness of his cell, heart pounding. Then, somewhere down the hall, he heard a loud crash, metal on metal. Footsteps approached. Someone was unlocking his cell door. "Who's there?" he called out, but there was no answer. The door creaked open. A shadow stood in the doorway, holding something small that glinted under the red light. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. And in that silent moment, he realized Stonebridge wasn't just hiding bad food. It was hiding something far worse.